Delano said, you know, I said, there's some guys that need some help using these boards, and Delano said to me, he said, you know, especially, you know, you just get on it, you know. And I know he was kind of being funny a little bit, but it's kind of true, especially with that bigger unit, or with the one that's on the right now, with the one that he calls the flat one. Basically, all you do have to do is get on that, because once you get on there and things aren't in line, you know, I mean, we watched. He called me the other night and told me to get on MLB.com. And Kevin Long was on there doing a segment on keeping toes squared and staying in a straight line. He told me to get on there and watch that. And, you know, that's all Kevin Long was talking about, with the Yankees, was trying to make sure everybody was staying in a straight line. Well, if you're not staying in a straight line on that board that's on the right, the flat one that Delano calls the flat one, well, you know, you don't really need a whole lot of instruction. And that was kind of the goal. Well, simply that was the purpose of me developing this thing, was kind of take, especially the youth coach out of the equation, just because, you know, dads and youth coaches were using about 17 different words and terminology to describe the same thing. So basically, you know, it applies the same to a 10-year-old as it does to your guys, in that they're going to get on there and make their own corrections, because the board's not going to let them not make corrections. So they get on there and they're going to make adjustments. And then they're going to apply that same muscle memory feeling to the ground. So anyway, let me quit talking. I'll go over here and I'll move the one that's on the right out of the way, the flat one. I think, like I said, that one's pretty self-explanatory. Really, you do just get on that one and hit. And when things aren't feeling balanced, then you start to make the adjustments yourself without really having to be told. Now the other one's used a couple different ways. Obviously, you know, we've talked about using it for. We're using it for adjusting the load. We've talked about using it for an explosive backside. We've talked about using it to make sure that the front leg is firming up, and we've talked about using it to make sure that, you know, weight's not getting excessive out on the front side. So let me go do that. All right, the bottom line with this one is, I mean, originally I created it, like I told you once before on the phone, I think. I created it for a 10-year-old kid that was basically taking, you know, this approach to hitting. He was standing here, and then he was going here and hitting. I mean, obviously that's not the issues you're dealing with, but that's what I was trying to address. Because he had no idea of that. You're supposed to go from here back to this load position, and then transfer your weight forward, you know, and firm this front side up. You know, even when he started loading, he was loading, and then he was jumping to here. So he was jumping out of the load into that. So with his board, then he's just going to be able to, what I did with that kid, and what I do with a lot of younger kids that aren't getting any load, is I go ahead and take those boots completely off, and I exaggerate this. Now, the way that some of the more advanced guys, professional guys, college guys, are using this is a little bit different, but they're exaggerating stuff too. When they take those boots off the back side, you notice how much on this side. See, I'm only getting this much rock. On this one, without the boots, I got a real exaggerated rock. And the reason those guys are using it some, like Kevin McMullen at UVA used it without any boots, so that his kids were having to fight out of this big hole to create a real explosive backside. So the ones that weren't getting any push out of backside, he made them work from here, as opposed to having the boots in there blocking it off. So you can see that this is going to be, once you start here balanced, and you let this happen, well, that's an exaggerated load. And it also, Kevin McMullen also used that for a couple kids that he had a problem that were letting this knee get outside of their foot. So right here they were just concentrating on making sure that even with an exaggerated load, they were fighting and having to use some muscle and a conscious effort to keep this knee inside this foot, instead of letting it get out here, which gravity is going to force to happen. Now they're forced to put forth a little bit of effort muscle-wise to keep this knee in here. Okay? Alright, but this obviously is an exaggerated load that you don't necessarily want guys to work with, but it does work for this concept of getting here and then fighting this 45-degree angle almost, which we've created, to get good fire out of the backside to get to a level position. To do this a few times, I mean, it's burning right here. Not that I'm in the best shape, but it's burning right here in my thigh. It's burning in my hip, burning in my knee area, just because I've created such a steep incline that I'm getting a muscle workout to get this movement. So that's one purpose. That's one reason that you can use that exaggeration. Now what I'm going to do is show you with trying to show you and move the board so that you can see what I'm doing. There's 3 holes drilled along the radius of this, so you can take these boots completely off, and you get this real exaggerated movement that I just demonstrated. You can put it back in here in this first hole, and that's going to cut it down some. You move to this second hole, and this is probably where you're going to want to use it if you want to control your guys' loads. The third hole, if I bring it all the way up to here, it really doesn't rock at all. It really doesn't get any movement backwards, because that's going to block it off, because essentially this boot is level with the bottom of this radius, and you're not going to get much movement at all. So when you're actually working on controlling your kids' loads, this is probably where you're going to go, second hole. But some of them might work out of this first hole. And if you want to exaggerate the movements, you want to just take it off. All right. So I'm going to put it back in here. Well, I'll put it in the second hole now that we talked about it. I'll put it in the second hole. One trick to putting these boots in, if you notice, this is an angled side, this is a flat side. The flat side, and they have rubber on the bottom. So the flat side needs to be facing in toward the middle, just so that this boot can move and it'll stay square with the ground and contacting. If it does it this way, you don't get the same reaction, if you see what I mean. It's going to be angled and kind of weird. So anyway, the flat side stays inward. All right. Testing my fine motor skills here under pressure on video. Alright, so that's in the second hole. That one's in the first hole. I'll compare those two to each other here in a few minutes and show you what the difference in the movements is. So again, this is with the boots. This is with the boots inserted in the second hole. All right. So you remember how much load we had when we had no boots on. This is with this end right here. I left those boots in the first hole, so you can see the amount of movement. I'm still getting a decent amount of an exaggerated load here. But some of you guys might have a load, you know, that's this extensive. Okay. And then this is with it in the second hole. And you'll notice how I cut down on the amount of movement. So basically they're going from this balanced position now, just right here. Boom, boom, boom. The other thing I like about it, you can't tell real well now because I'm in here in the basement on this padded carpet. But when these boots contact the ground, not only are they feeling their load forced to stop, but they're hearing an auditory reminder of that because those boots contact the ground, make a little clicking noise, whatever. So I'm going to go from here, okay, good, be balanced, get to the load, balance, get to the load, balance, get to the load, and then working this explosive backside out of this. Now, if they're not keeping their weight back and letting this front leg get bent, they're going to transfer and they're going to end up out here. And once they end up out there a couple times, even if you want to work all speed stuff with this, you know, and they're not staying back and they're out front, you don't have to teach that anymore because they're feeling that again. You know, again, it's empowering them with the ability to make those recognitions. You know, as far as that's concerned, you're probably going to teach me more about where those boots should be for certain things than I did. You know, the explosive backside just happens really as a result of being on it, especially if you exaggerate it without the boots. And just a matter of that front leg firming up. The other way to make sure